Hi there. My name is Drew, and if we haven't met before, welcome to ReadyBudgetGo. If this isn't your first visit, welcome back. Either way, I'm glad you're here. This is My Money Relaunch, a series where I talk about all things I've learned as I dug myself out of debt for the second time and started gaining control over my finances. Before we go into today's topic, there's a couple points I need to cover. First, I'm not a financial advisor. This series is for informational and entertainment purposes only. Before making any moves with your money, do your own research and seek your own counsel. Second, while I'm talking, I'll be putting down stickers in this paint by sticker book. For each sticker I place, I will save $5 toward one of my big goals. Today's target is 50 stickers for $250 in savings. Currently, I'm working on topping up my emergency fund. After an unexpected tax bill earlier this year put a big dent in my savings, I've now put all that money back and I'm working toward fully funding my new goal. This week's topic is inspired by a comment by Tony on one of my recent videos. I always appreciate everyone sharing their reactions and ideas, and her message made me reflect on how far I've come in the last 10 years. So Tony, if you're watching or listening, this video is dedicated to you. I want to revisit a topic from earlier in the series, which is tracking your spending. It's a fairly straightforward concept, but most folks avoid doing it, so it becomes a major barrier to successfully managing your money. That was my experience. For all of my 20s and half of my 30s, I didn't put one iota of effort into tracking where I was spending my money. As such, it flitted away like a kaleidoscope of butterflies. There are several possible reasons that someone may not track their spending. These run the gamut from ignorance to shame to fear. Ignorance is the easiest to fix, but probably also the least common. If you'd never been taught to brush your teeth, and you learned much later in life that you could prevent cavities by brushing your teeth, you'd probably start brushing your teeth. But a tooth cavity is a far more acute problem than a busted budget. If it weren't for credit allowing people to overextend themselves, a lot more of us would be keenly focused on where our money was going, because money would be finite, just like your adult teeth. Start thinking about money this way, and soon you'll want to know exactly where every penny goes. Perhaps shame is the reason someone isn't tracking their spending. They know they've mucked up their money, and examining the evidence of their capriciousness would compound the feelings of guilt. The way out of this is grit, plain and simple. Deciding that you're not going to let the shame of past financial indiscretions rob you of your peace of mind in the present and your security in the future is the most important step to being able to face the consequences of how you've been handling your money. The best time to start tracking your spending was when you earned your first dollar. The second best time is right now. Fear is also a powerful demotivator for tracking your spending. This could be fear of looking at the brutal truth as the numbers stare starkly back at you from the page, or it could be the fear of something else. That if you start looking at how you've been spending your money, you'll be confronted with the fact that you've been doing something wrong, which you probably already know anyway, and find the inevitable truth that you need to make changes in your life to stop the damage. You've probably heard the saying that the first step to getting out of a hole is to stop digging. You have to know where all your money has been going. If you don't, whatever hole you're in is only going to get deeper and deeper, and if you think the medicine tastes bad now, wait until you hit rock bottom. I've been there, twice, and it's not a place I'd like to visit again. It's understandable that we don't want to make changes in what we're doing with our money. We don't want to give up our indulgences. We like our routines and, yes, our ruts. They're comforting to us. But the fact is that we wouldn't need so much comfort if we weren't making such a big, stress-inducing mess to begin with. When I was grieving the loss of my mother, I undertook some of the hobbies that she and I used to enjoy doing together. This was not inexpensive, and it's why I got back into debt so quickly. It didn't replace my mom, but it soothed the grief for a moment. But only for a moment. I still had to go home to an empty house, and the feelings would come right back. Tracking my spending was the least of my worries because I wanted to soothe that grief at any cost. In short, I just didn't care. But eventually the debt payments became more difficult, and it got harder to keep all the plates spinning. The stress of the debt began to feel worse than the grief, and that's when I knew I had to take action. The first thing I did, as I've shared earlier in my money relaunch, was a 6-month spending analysis. It took me an entire month to gather all the statements and receipts, organize the transactions, list them all, categorize them all, and add everything up. 1 month. If I'd been tracking my spending all along, I wouldn't have had to go through this exercise because I would have had all the information already. Okay, so I've discussed why tracking your money is important and how to overcome some of the most common obstacles. Now let me tell you about the biggest benefit that I got from tracking my spending. This isn't some rah-rah pat myself on the back for doing the right thing. This is a real and tangible benefit of watching every penny. How many times have you bought something in a store and before you even got it home you were kicking yourself, wishing you hadn't spent the money? Or how many times have you thrown away or donated something that, in the moment you bought it, sounded like a great idea, and then you dragged it home and either used it once or never even took it out of the box? I still make stupid purchases, especially when it comes to stationery, but nowhere near as many as I used to. Because I track my spending, I know how much I have allotted to a given purpose, and if something else comes up that tempts me, I have to stop and think. First, do I need it? The answer to this question is almost always no. Next, do I want this item, whatever it is, badly enough to deviate from my plan? In other words, is this item worth more to me than the money I have in the bank? If the answer is yes, then the next question is whether I can buy this item again later. If I can, then I'm usually not going to spend the money right away unless it's very inexpensive or on deep discount. Instead, I usually take out my phone and either snap a picture of the item or jot a quick note to myself. I put myself on a 24-hour timer. Most of the time I don't even think to check back and I forget all about it. Sometimes I'll rediscover the note months later. I can't recall a single instance where I decided I still wanted the item after all that time had passed. Budgeting and tracking your spending go hand in hand. The budget is the map, and your spending tracker is the GPS. Budgeting isn't about denying yourself the pleasures in life, it's about selecting what is most important to you. You can't have it all, as the saying goes, but you can have something. What that something is up to you. How much are you willing to spend on it, or how hard are you willing to work to get it? To put it another way, I spend less now than I did before I started tracking my spending, but I get more satisfaction out of the money that I do spend because I'm being intentional with my choices. I'm not throwing money around willy-nilly. I'm not borrowing money on credit to try in vain to slake a thirst that can never be quenched. I'm looking at how much I have, how much I make, and deciding what I want that money to do for me. Before I started tracking, I dealt with a lot of regret with how much money I wasted. I don't do that anymore. At least not the regret part, as no one is so perfect with their spending that they never make a dumb purchase. Making a plan and tracking to that plan means I don't have to deal with regret, at least not on the scale that I did when I was the king of saying charge it. I shared on a previous episode that my generation, the millennial generation, is the most marketed to cohort of people in history. As such, my peers and I were weaned on the idea that if we see something we want, we need to get it right then. Advertisers try to push our emotional buttons to create a sense of artificial urgency. Don't fall for it. When you track your spending, you know how much you have available to spend for a given budget category. And if you want something badly enough, whether it's worth it to you not to spend money on something else you'd planned for. I can't tell you how many times I've started stockpiling money towards something I thought I wanted, only to abandon ship a few weeks in. Because I could watch the money going to that goal, while other goals were either starved or deferred, so I would change course. If you've been following my Friday videos, you know that savings is a big priority for me. I don't look at it as deprivation of all the other things that money could have purchased. I look at it as choosing long-term security and prosperity over the accumulation of more stuff. The point is that I had my eye on the ball at all times. It's okay to change your mind. It's okay to shift your priorities. That's just life, and your budget should be able to keep up with you as your needs and wants change. It's the difference between keeping a steady hand on the ship's wheel to navigate around the obstacles life throws at you and taking a nap on the poop deck while your ship runs aground. My theme for this year is Steer Fearlessly. Knowledge isn't just power, it's confidence. I'm embarking on a huge adventure this year where I'm moving to an entirely different state where I know almost no one. But I've built a financial foundation that gives me security and peace of mind. I'm not depending on anyone else. In fact, at 44, I'm finally and firmly declaring my independence and charting my own course. There are unknowns, yes, and there was a time in my life when those would have paralyzed me. But I have a plan and I have my own safety net. This confidence is derived from budgeting, saving, and knowing where I stand. It's not magic and it's not a miracle. It's preparation, practice, and discipline. If you feel you're in a pit like I was, first stop reacting. Take a step back, do everything you can to clear your head, refocus, and start rebuilding with intention. It takes time and hard work, but it's possible. Okay, that's all for this week. I'm not yet sure what next week's topic will be. I'm hopeful that it will come to me in my travels as I explore my intended new hometown. I hope you'll join me. For now, if you enjoyed this episode of My Money Relaunch, please be sure to give it a thumbs up, leave me a comment down below, and subscribe if you haven't already. Until I see you in the next one, take care.